Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 7-game Major League Baseball slate. This slate is pretty solid. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? We did have 2 home run calls yesterday on the channel. Kevin Fontenot and then also Patrick Bush. Both of you guys got home run calls. Patrick had Aaron Judge and Kevin had Nolan Arenado. So make sure to drop your comments below with your home run calls. Let's go ahead and get into the slate here. My top stacks for this slate are Houston, Boston, and Seattle. My core plays here for DraftKings are William Contreras and Alex Bregman, so do keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and get into the pitchers here. We're going to start with Spencer Strider. Now, one thing I'll note about the pitchers today is that most of the top pitchers are also facing pretty good teams, so it does definitely make a tough situation for a lot of these guys. But you're going to have to pick 2, so I'm going to give you the best options available. Spencer Strider here is got the best K rate on the slate by a large margin. He's had nothing under 8 strikeouts in every single game this season. He's also been under 17 fantasy points all season long. He's had tough matchups. He's got a good matchup here, a tough matchup here against Texas. But Texas is a team that is beatable, especially when you're striking out guys like he is. And he has really good metrics for this game. I like his upside. I like his potential here. And just like he did against Toronto, where he, didn't really do anything wrong. He had 12 strikeouts. That's a very similar possibility here today. Hopefully the Braves can actually score some runs that will help him get the win. Garrett Cole is also in play for the Yankees. He has a tough matchup against Toronto. Now, he had 2 really tough matchups in Tampa Bay the last 2 games. And his last game against Toronto, he had 16 fantasy points earlier this season. However, this is a pretty tough matchup, but he's been decent against tough teams too. He's a little bit cheaper than Spencer Strider, and he's got just as much upside, but the floor is a little bit lower, as he doesn't typically have the max K rate that Strider does, and sometimes he scores under 15 fantasy points. But he definitely has some upside in this matchup. Then we'll look at Corbin Burns, who has a little bit of a better matchup, but still not ideal with the way that some of the players on St. Louis are swinging the bat right now. But he's pitched really well lately, and I like his upside here. Now, he hasn't faced a ton of tough teams so far this season, and when he hasn't done very well. But he's still a quality option. His price makes him pretty rosterable here today, though Arenado does scare me on this one. His K rate is okay as well. Then we'll look at Eovaldi. Now, he is in a very tough matchup here against Atlanta. Atlanta obviously has big-time potential, but he's had 3 straight games where he's thrown at least 8 innings and had shutouts with a pretty good amount of strikeouts as well. He's not typically this good, so his price has come up a lot, which is definitely interesting, but he definitely has some upside due to the fact that he's just on fire right now. Somewhat risky as a result, but especially because of the matchup, but he's definitely somebody to consider as a contrarian option at this position. Then we'll look at Corey Bassett, who is facing the Yankees, another not ideal matchup. The Yankees are hitting better now than they were a few weeks ago. He's also scored 40 fantasy points in his last game against Atlanta, which gives him some upside here, but he's a little riskier. His floor is very low because he can have really bad games occasionally, but I do think he's got some upside here. Even if he gives up some earned runs, he will have some strikeout potential here as well. So then we'll look at JP France. Now, I don't think I've ever actually suggested JP France in a video before, but he's had 2 straight games against subpar opponents, mind you. I mean, Seattle's a decent team, but he doesn't have a huge K rate, but he's managed to score some fantasy points in both games, and his price is pretty good. So I think he's definitely in consideration here. He's got a little bit of an easier matchup against the Cubs than some of the other pitchers that I've already mentioned, and he's a lot less expensive than some of the other guys, so that gives him some utility. He's not a must-play by any stretch of the imagination, but he's definitely in play as a potential play on the slate. Moving into the catchers, we're going to start with William Contreras for Milwaukee. Now, he is probably my favorite play. Where'd he go? Oh, sorry, I have him in my core plays. He is one of my favorite plays at this position just because he has good home run potential and he has good hitting potential. He's one of the better hitters on the slate when it comes to catchers, and he also has the home run potential. He hasn't hit a ton of home runs yet, but he's still hitting the ball pretty well, and I like his upside in this matchup. He's got a decent potential here in this one. Cal Raleigh is also in play. Now, I don't think he's as good of a hitter as William is, but he's been hitting the ball really well. He's got home run potential. The metrics don't really line up today. The ISO is very good, but the WOBA is rough for this matchup, especially against the handiness of the pitcher. So he's a little concerning, but Seattle is a stackable team. If you can, if you like that stack, then he's definitely somebody you could fit in there. Though he is somewhat expensive. Sean Murphy is in play for Atlanta. Now Atlanta's high risk, high reward today, so they're a contrarian stack. Not a top stack, but a contrarian one. And if you can afford to, because you go cheap on pitchers, then you could do a Atlanta stack in the bats. He is high risk, high reward doing this matchup, doing the bleh, just because he hasn't been a big time average guy the last 10 or so games, but he has home run potential, and I like his upside, though he's fairly expensive. And then for a Hail Mary play at this position, we have Francisco Alvarez, who hasn't hit the ball particularly great, but he has home run potential, and he's only played a handful of games. And if he does draw the start, he would definitely be in consideration, though he does tend to strike out a lot. So do keep that in mind. But he is high risk, high reward. Moving into first base, Matt Olson draws some good metrics for this matchup, though Evoli has been extremely good the last 3 starts. But if Atlanta gets going against him, then he's definitely somebody that has home run potential in this situation. Jose Abreu is also available at this position. Now, he has not hit the ball well. He doesn't have a home run yet this season, but he did have a good game the other day against the Cubs. There's 2 games ago, and I do think he's got some upside here. He's been hitting the ball a little bit better the last 5 or 6 games than he had beforehand, and if he draws a start today, he's definitely worth a consideration due to his price. He's got good metrics, but he's got to get going. Then we'll look at Justin Turner for Boston. I really like his upside in this matchup. He's hitting the ball decently well, and he definitely has home run potential in this one. He's probably the safest option at this position for just a pure fantasy point perspective, and he's got the home run potential. So he's definitely somebody that I definitely think is highly considerable on this particular slate. Then we'll look at some Hail Mary play, Mark Vientos. Now, he can play first base or third base, and he's an interesting play for the Mets. He hasn't played yet this season, but he has been extremely good in the minors, and I really like his upside here. He has home run potential, and I think he's definitely somebody to consider as an interesting play, especially if he draws a start. Obviously, he has to draw a start to really want to use him. But it looks like maybe Vogelbach will not be getting as much attention now that Vientos is up with the team. So we'll have to wait and see if he draws a start, but he would definitely be somebody to consider. I'm also going to mention Ty France. He is also in play for a Seattle stack. His price is really fair here, and he's a good value play and a good alternative to Turner if you prefer to do a Seattle stack today as opposed to a Boston one. Then we'll look at Brandon Lowe at second base for Tampa Bay. Now, he has not hit the ball well lately. His batting average has really just fallen underneath 200, which is wild. But he does have home run potential. In the last 3 games, he's gotten hits, and so maybe he's getting out of it some. And if he is, then his price has come down a little bit, which is definitely makes him a little bit more rosterable. He's also got a decent matchup here, even though the Mets pitcher is pretty good, but Tampa Bay is Tampa Bay. But he is high risk as a result of the slump he's been in. This position is kind of rough, though, so he is definitely in consideration. Dubon for Houston is also in play here, though. He has hit the ball really well. I don't really feel like he's got a home run potential here, but he has a good fantasy point upside, and he's priced cheaply, and that can definitely give you some utility here. He also has stolen base potential, which gives us a nice little advantage. Then we'll look at Colton Wong, who has not hit the ball well, but at some point you think he'll start hitting the ball decent. So he's a Hail Mary approach, very Hail Mary approach on this one. He does have home run potential, but he really hasn't done very much yet this season. I think he's only had a couple games over 10 fantasy points. But again, it only takes one swing, and then he can be in the play. But he's a very boomer bust play on this particular slate. Moving into third base, we'll look at Alex Bregman for Houston. Now, I really like his upside here. He hasn't hit the ball well, but he is hitting the ball better the last few games. He's managed to score some decent amount of fantasy points in some of these games, and he definitely has good big-time upside in this matchup. And so he's definitely a good play at this position, though he's a little risky due to the batting average. Austin Riley is in play here. He's also not hitting the ball particularly great lately. He does have home run potential. That's a common occurrence here at third base today. But he is in play at this position if you can afford him or if you want to go with the Atlanta stack. Brosseau for Milwaukee is in play. His metrics jump off the chart here, but he hasn't hit the ball well either. But he does definitely has home run potential. But he's pretty much a Hail Mary play at this point. If he was hitting the ball a little bit better, he would just move into a value option. But and then Vientos, again, he can play third base as well. And I actually like him at third base a little bit better because there's plenty of good options at first base that actually look pretty viable. So I think he's probably best suited if he draws a start to be at third base today. Then for shortstops, we'll look at Jeremy Pena, who's hitting the ball okay, and he seems like he's doing pretty good lately. I like his upside in this matchup. He has home run potential, and this is a good situation for him. His price is a little bit overpriced, but I still think he's viable here. If Kiki Hernandez draws a start today, which it looks like he will, he should be good to go. If he is, then he's somebody that I would consider as a value play. He's not ideal. He doesn't have great metrics here, but there just really isn't anything at this position that makes me super excited. J.P. Crawford, though, is available for Seattle. If you go with the Seattle stack, he would definitely be a guy that I would put in there. He's not really a home run guy, but he has the potential to get some good hits and have even a stolen base maybe, which is somewhat not likely, but he definitely has the potential, and he's just getting a decent chunk of hits in these types of situations, so I like his upside. I will mention Gabriel Arias for Cleveland, another guy that's not a home run guy. He's just super cheap, a Hail Mary option, kind of a contrarian option, if you will, on the slate. And then Rocio for Cleveland. He has only played one game so far, but he has stolen base potential, and that gives him some risky Hail Mary upside on this particular slate. Moving into the outfielders, we'll start with Jordan Alvarez for Houston. I really do like some of these Houston guys. If you go with the Houston stack, he's definitely somebody I would roster. He's very expensive, but his price has actually come down despite the fact that he's been scoring a good chunk of points lately. I like his upside. He's a great play on the slate and my top overall option at this position. Julio Rodriguez is also in play for Seattle, though his batting average has left a lot to be desired. He is managing to get hits most games lately, and so that gives him some upside. He has also got the home run potential as well. Seattle's been kind of fickle this season so far. Acuna Jr. for Atlanta is also in play. I'm not sure if anybody's hitting the ball better than he is lately. He has smashed 3 straight games with home runs. I mean, maybe Arenado is, but he has big-time potential in this matchup. Despite the fact that Texas's pitcher has been really solid lately, he's been equally as solid as a hitter, and I find it hard-pressed that anybody's going to stop him. He's also got massive stolen base potential. This dude is stealing bases all over the place. He's got 17 stolen bases already, which is wild. And this is why his price is so high. He's batting .348. He's got home run potential every time up to bat. And if he gets on base, then, you're in trouble as well. So then we'll look at Yoshida for Boston. He has hit the ball really solidly. He finally kind of came off of the big crazy streak he was going on. Because he's had a couple games with no hits, but he's still hitting the ball well. He even had a triple last game out, so I like his upside. Potential here is good. He's got home run potential as well. Josh Lowe is also in play for Tampa Bay. He is facing a weaker pitcher in Senga, who really just hasn't had it the last few games. He's a good pitcher, but he's not a great pitcher, I guess. And Tampa Bay is a really good team. I expect Tampa Bay to score 5 or more runs in this game, and I look for him to be somebody that really puts some of those in. Then we'll look at some value plays here. Chase McCormick for Houston. I really like his upside in this matchup. He's hit the ball pretty well the last couple games. He's got some good potential here, and while he does need to draw a start, but he's hitting the ball well enough, and he's got a good matchup, so I do think he's in consideration. Now, Michael Harris is in play today, too. He's also just way too cheap for what his potential is. He's high risk, though, because he has not really been that great so far this season. Though when he does get on base, he does have stolen base potential, but he's a little bit risky, so do keep that in mind. But if he does start to get going again, which he definitely has the capacity to do, he definitely has his price will not stay low for long. Rob Ref Snyder is in play today. If he draws a start for Boston, he's got, good metrics for this matchup. He Every now and then he has a game where the metrics really kind of lock in for him. And as you can see, if you look at his stats, he's had good games across the board. Even without the home runs, he has stolen base. He has one stolen base this year, and sorry about that. And he has some good fantasy point games. His price is cheap. He's a good kind of a value slash Hail Mary option on the slate. Then we'll look at Steven Kwan for Cleveland. Now, he's not really a big-time home run hitter, but he does have stolen base potential, and he does hit the ball decently well. I wish he was hitting it a little bit better, but he's been getting on base most games, and he's got some potential in this matchup. Then we'll look at some Hail Mary plays for you, and Corey Jukes for Houston. He has hit the ball really well the last few games. He's kind of a boomer bust option, but he definitely has that potential as he has home run potential in this one, in this matchup. And then Joey Wiemer for Milwaukee. He's got a really good matchup today. He's been boomer bust though so far, but he does have home run potential. But as you can see, that most of the games he either gets 3 points or 19 or more. So I think he's got a good upside here, but he's high risk, high reward. I would also consider Toscar Hernandez, Ian Happ, and Chris Morel at this position. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.